All right, guys. So you know how I said you had two more videos? I didn't lie. I really do have 2 days of videos, but I'm just going to make them all into one uh, for my benefit, but also for yours, so you can just kind of get all this stuff out of the way. And this then makes this good news because this is now your last video of the school year, 2019-2020 school year anyway. And yay, um, let's get to it. Truth and discretion. Truth in speech, truth in written language, truth in really any form of communication is important because truth is the cornerstone for any trust in human interaction and is in fact what makes trust in human interaction possible. Um, so the first question that you should answer in Unit 8 questions, why is truth important in human life? Uh, Whenever there is miscommunication, and most particularly in the case of direct lies, or evasive language, or an intentional and unjust withholding of the truth, it does create mistrust, and discord. There we go, in all human relationships, and perhaps sometimes even sows the seeds of hatred. So, is it important that we tell the truth? You bet yourself that it is. That's a weird expression. You bet your life, you bet your bottom dollar, something like that. You better believe it, right? It is absolutely important. Um, and in terms of truth, as Catholics, we hopefully are confident in our ability to find the ultimate truths about life. Uh, Truth is important, after all, because Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. But truths concerning the faith and morals taught by the church have the stamp of total certainty because of who gave them to us, right? The church, who in turn received them through Christ and the Holy Spirit, right? The sources of truth. And when it comes to truth, the ancient philosophers said that man is the only rational animal, right? That is, we're the only ones capable of discerning or understanding the truth. So how are humans different from animals when it comes to truth? Well, we can ask questions, seek knowledge, and share it with others. Animals don't have that capability, right? And so the consequences of truth to human dignity then are important, and then lead back into that first question that we already answered. The dignity of a human person, the dignity of a person that we've already understood to be a child of God, means that every person deserves to hear the truth, to pursue the truth, and once discovered, to speak the truth, right? To discover it, right? That is to hear it, to pursue it, to share it. And again, underscoring the importance of truth, right? Now, there is a relationship then between the virtue of truthfulness. Hey, guess what, guys? I didn't say this, but I'm telling you now. Truthfulness is actually a virtue, right? What is the relation then between that virtue of truthfulness or truth and the virtue of charity according to Christ's teachings? In his teachings, Christ shows us that the fullness of truth is manifested when it is articulated with love, with charity. So we can be truthful, and sometimes we can be harsh in our truth, but the most palatable truth, the best truths, are those that are given with and out of love, right? And as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, we have then an obligation, we have a vocation. Part of our vocation is to witness and communicate truth, and not a kind of, partial truth or my version of the truth, because we believe that there is objective truth, right? We as Christians are called to speak objectively, truthfully, right? And I think we sometimes go through some exercises in our minds to kind of wiggle our way out of that, or to, give a subjective truth or my truth, right? That's the love when people say that. He said sarcastically, not really meaning it. There is no my truth. There is only truth, okay? And so it's important that we really share the truth with others. Um, and the relationship then between everything truthful and Christ is that Christ is incarnate truth, and everything truthful reflects his mind and his will. And that's exactly why we're called to express truth whenever we encounter it and share it with others. The next question is, why were the chosen people confident in the truth, and what did Christ teach about the truth? The Jewish people had confidence in their relationship with the truth because of their possession of the Word of God, right? They believed that they were given the truth, right? And we believe the same thing. They were given the truth in divine revelation. That truth was continued and brought to its fulfillment and fullness in the person of Jesus Christ. So in his teachings, Christ shows us the fullness of truth is manifested when it's articulated with charity. The entirety of the New Testament is a powerful reminder that that revelation of truth culminates in the life and teachings of Christ, who is the truth and embodies the truth and love writ large. The next question, when is it wrong to reveal information or to withhold it, right? So if we look at the if we look at the 8th commandment, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, it at its core is teaching us the value of truthfulness. We have an obligation to be truthful. And another way of kind of expressing that fundamental positive understanding of the 8th commandment is we have to speak truthfully at all times, right? But we also need to keep in mind that when it comes to communicating everything one knows, are we obligated to do that? Like, we're obligated to tell the truth, but are we obligated to reveal everything we know? And I guess by the way I just phrased that, you're probably saying, well, that seems unreasonable. There are times where we probably shouldn't reveal everything we know, and you'd absolutely be correct. Sometimes we have a responsibility to uphold and protect someone's good name, or protect private or sensitive material through silence. Sometimes people just don't have the right to know things. For example, if one of you asked me what somebody else's grade was, guess what? I couldn't reveal it to you because you don't have the right to know it. Now, if that person revealed it to you, that's their right to do, but it is not my right to reveal that person's information to you. I'm not going to say their truth, but that truthful information that is theirs, it is not my right to reveal to you. So there are examples of confidential information that people don't have the right to know that include things like a company's classified information, right? Military intelligence, health histories, HIPAA laws, right? How someone votes in a general election. All those things are private and should be kept private for safety and security of other people, right? And quite frankly, just because we don't need access to those things at all times unless we are in the appropriate position to do something good with that information and have a right to that information. Okay, but there is some classified information that does have to be disclosed in particular situations. Like sometimes the protection of or welfare of an individual or other in society warrants disclosure of classified information. Like all your teachers, spoilers, I'm telling you this, I think you already know this, but in case you don't, we are all what are known as mandatory reporters. If we even suspect that there is any type of child abuse going on, we have a legal responsibility to report it. Now, I would say that we also have obviously a moral responsibility, which is why I would do it whether there was a legal one or not, but we are legally kind of obligated to do so, but also morally obligated to do so. Like other classified information, things like knowledge of drug trafficking, financial fraud, corruption, criminal activity, etc., all those things we do have a responsibility to reveal for the common good. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to keep in mind when it comes to truth and discretion. So let's go to the third question then. When is it wrong to reveal information or withhold it? Confidential information must be withheld from one who does not have the right to know it for just reasons, right? For just reasons. Period. The end. But for just reasons, though, and this is kind of the converse of that, for just reasons, even confidential information may be required to be revealed to the proper persons. But generally speaking, there are situations in which you can use your reason to figure out whether or not that's information that should or shouldn't be told. So let's go to truth and the converse, right, of it. So I don't know how we would what we want to call it. So we want to call it a lie? Do we want to call it a falsehood? All sorts of things, right? So a lie or a falsehood is a deviation from truth, right? From reality, and certainly from the reality that God has established. So when it comes to lies, they are a deliberate attempt to evade or to mislead someone from truth that they are owed. Again, not everyone is owed the entirety of truth, right? But anytime someone is owed the truth and we don't give it to them, that's a lie. Okay. So if that's what a lie is, what are the consequences of a lie for the speaker, right? The next question. So much like any sin, right? We've talked about this before. Sin damages the sinner and the person being sinned against. So in the case of the consequences of the lie for the speaker, in the speaker themselves, the damage it causes them, it causes moral damage, right? And beyond that, it causes a loss of their credibility, a loss of sincerity that other people aren't going to believe them, right? And mistrust in the relationships of the people around them. Sometimes it even leads to loss of relationship. Anyone that has had a friendship or relationship ruined by a lie can testify to that reality. Communication is only possible through trust in what is being communicated. And so lies certainly have consequences, and lies lead to mistrust in human relationships on an individual level, but also in a greater level. I mean, all you need to do is turn on the news today, God forbid, and all you'll hear is about lies from both sides of the political spectrum. Both sides say the other side is lying, right? So we gave the definition of falsehood. I kind of gave you the definition of lie. Let me give you kind of a straight up definition. What is a lie? A lie is deliberately saying something that is contrary to what he or she thinks or knows to be true. Okay. And the consequences, again, we already said those consequences in terms of relationship, moral damage, loss of sincerity, credibility in the eyes of others. Lie contributes to general mistrust in human relationships. The moral damage that it causes, right, depends. The moral damage could be venial, could be moral, right? Mortal, right? So the moral damage could be either or, depends on the severity of the lie. So ultimately, the one who lies becomes alienated from other people, certainly the people that they're lying to, becomes alienated from Christ, and they make themselves vulnerable to the temptations of the father of lies, Satan, right? And ultimately, when it comes to determining that severity of whether it's a venial or mortal sin, there is a way to determine that, right? There are 4 factors that you need to keep in mind. The nature or the object of the lie, right? The intentions, this sounds familiar, I hope, the circumstances, and then the last thing, which is related to the circumstances, the effects, right? So the object of the lie, or the nature of the lie, right? The intentions, the circumstances, and the effects which are related to the circumstances. Okay. So, your next question, how is the gravity of a lie determined? Just gave you the answer, right? Nature or object, intention, circumstances, effect on others. And one of the effects that often happens is the damage to another person's reputation. Okay? So when we lie, it can take many different forms. Some of them are sins against reputation of another. And sometimes we can lie by telling the truth. It seems crazy, I know. Often that one seems really weird when I say it like that. But the first sin against the reputation of another that you find on page 256 in your textbook is calumny or slander, right? And the next one is detraction, right? So the first one is kind of the lie form of damaging someone's reputation. The second one, detraction, is the truthful form of damaging someone's reputation. Both of them are related to gossip, right? We all know what I'm talking about here. Maybe you don't, but you will when I explain it to you, right? When you're sitting at the cafeteria table and you start the whispers about what happened, what somebody did at the party, right? And you're telling the truth, that's detraction. When you make those whispers about something that the person did at the party and you're lying about them, that's calumny, that's slander, right? Slander, obviously, is a lie. And so is calumny. And calumny often comes from envy, right, of another person, hatred of another person. And it is done specifically to damage their reputation, much like detraction is, right? Revealing that hidden truth that somebody doesn't have a right to know is equally damaging to their reputation, right? Because it's not yours to reveal. And certainly not yours to reveal to people that don't have the right to know it. And so that's why those are damaging. Okay? So this stems from the reality of this first question. What must be our attitude toward the reputation of another? Well, we have a responsibility and obligation out of justice and love and charity, right, to protect and, if possible, to build up the reputation of others, the good reputation of others that they have earned, right? And also, maybe they don't earn a good reputation, right? We shouldn't do anything to damage their reputation necessarily either. We should take an active role in helping them build a good reputation. And I know that sometimes seems like a lot of work, but guess what? We're called to make the world a better place. And sometimes it takes a lot of work, right? And so the next sin against reputation after calumny, slander, and detraction is rash judgment, right? And again, this is one that I think most of us are probably going to be pretty familiar with. When it comes to rash judgment, I think we've all kind of come into that situation where we didn't have necessarily all the facts to make an opinion about another person, but we made one anyway, right? Usually about their character or some type of moral defect. That person is a blah, blah, blah because they did this one thing. So that's kind of a limited sample size, isn't it? Right? And in those situations, we have an obligation to find the truth, right? If somebody says something and you're like, well, what a jerk, that person's an awful human being. Well, maybe they are. Maybe your judgment is right. But did you do all the work to really find it out? Did you ask them, when you said this, is this what you meant, right? So we do have an obligation to really figure out if the person is really living up to the judgment that we've made for them, right? And again, it's easier said than done, but that kind of judgment is sinful because the verdict could very well be false, and it's sinful even if it could be truthful because we have rushed to it. We don't have the actual evidence to have that judgment. And oftentimes when we make that type of judgment, what do? We share it with others, even though it is a rash judgment, not necessarily fact. Insincere flattery along with this one, are things like adulation or complacence, which are related things. Insincere flattery is problematic, just like adulation, just like complacence. So what's the difference between those? Flattery, you kind of blow somebody up, you make, say, oh, you're great, blah, 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 so that you can get something out of it, right? And adulation's that to the nth degree. Usually, when I think of adulation, it's like, oh, you're so amazing, right? And it's because you want to get something from that other person. Like, this adulation is usually like reserved for those brown nosers to their bosses type of situation. That's usually what I think of when I think of adulation. And then complacence, you do something to please someone else, whatever that thing may be, not because you actually want to, but you want to get something out of it. All of them are insincere, right? And they become very sinful when you lead the other person into immoral action. But they're problematic against the eighth commandment because you're giving them false qualities, right? That they may not possess, or certainly don't possess to the kind of degree that you are saying in the case of flattery or adulation. In the case of complacence, you are lying to them, and that you are saying, oh, I'm so happy to be doing this for you, when in fact you're not. Okay. Bragging or boasting, right? Self-flattery, right? And we already talked about the problem is with flattery, and it's sinful, right? If it's truthful, it's not necessarily bragging, but it is not also necessarily something that is becoming of you. We are called to humility, right? Pride goeth before the fall. And so acknowledgement of your good qualities that God has given you is good, but there's no need to falsely blow yourself up about it, right? And so the next question, what are sins against reputation? We each name them. Sins against the reputation of another include calumny, slander, detraction, rash judgment, flattery, and bragging. And then the next question, when does one have the duty to make reparation for damaging another's reputation? So again, when we talked about the 7th and 10th commandment, we talked about restitution. Now when we talk about lies and we talk about sins against reputation, we get the other type of repair work we need to do, which is reparation. So when does one have the duty to make reparation for damaging another's reputation? A lie is not only a sin against truth and charity, but against justice, which by its very nature demands reparation. So anytime we lie, we have an obligation to fix the damage that our lie causes. And that, my friends, is sometimes easier said than done. And it can be very difficult for us to do. So related to the truth that we talked about earlier, we have obligations for secrets, which is the next section on pages 259 and 260. We are obliged to keep a secret under 3 conditions, right? And you should know these 3 conditions. When the good of our neighbor, depends upon it, when we have promised to keep it, or when our profession or office requires it. However, there are also conditions where we are released from keeping a secret, and that condition is simply this: when it's the only way to correct a serious wrong or to avoid a great harm to the common good. So, 3 kind of times where we're obliged to keep a secret, and 1.5, maybe 2 reasons when we're released from it. So again, first question, when are we obliged to keep secrets? Those 3 conditions: the good of the neighbor demands it, when we have promised to keep it, or when our profession or office requires it. When we must reveal a secret, even after making a promise not to, when it is necessary to correct a serious wrong or to avoid a great harm to the common good. And the kind of last thing that we need to talk about is something that we don't like to talk about, and that is martyrdom, right? And martyrdom seems kind of weird that we're talking about truth and talking about martyrdom, but when you look at martyrdom, it is really the ultimate testimony to Christian truth, because people are willing to give up their lives to profess the truth, right? So what is the greatest testimony to the truth? Martyrdom is the ultimate testimony of the truth for most of us. Centering our daily lives around Jesus Christ is an effort to strive for sanctity, is the best way of showing love for the truth. Put another way, the early Christians gave witness to the truth of Christ because they preferred torture and death rather than to deny their faith, than deny truth. And we can continue to do that in smaller ways that don't necessarily involve us dying, by centering our daily lives in and on Jesus Christ in an effort to be holy, right? And we are still presented with opportunities to be faithful to the truth, professing the gospel by speaking about the rights of unborn children, embracing chastity, evangelizing through word, but most importantly through example, and doing those things, being the person that actually is holy, that actually is pious. It can be rough, particularly in a world that constantly denigrates those qualities and those virtues that our faith tells us are good things to cultivate. And so it can be a trial, it can be hard, but it is truth and it is love, and we are called to do it. And so that's a good place for us to end the videos, and know that you are loved and that you guys are amazing, and I'm going to miss you terribly over the summer. I've missed you terribly these last couple of weeks, months now, as this continues to drag on. But I've been praying for you, and we'll get through this. And we will come out the other side, and I'm going to, just be so happy to see you guys in person next year. And I'll see you then. And we will finish strong. Love you. See you.